Welcome back to The Straight Shift, everyone, the podcast that cuts through all the car BS and gives you the real deal information that you actually need. I'm your host, Leanne the Car Chick, and today we're diving into a topic that's about as fun as a root canal, but it's really important if you like your car, and that is car insurance. You will absolutely regret if you skimp on car insurance, but so many people make the mistake when they're car shopping of not factoring that into their budget, especially if they're coming out of a really old car that has been pretty cheap to insure. All of a sudden, they buy a new car and sticker shock as soon as they get the premium for the new one. So, to help us make sense of the fine print, the premium hikes over the past few years, and why your rates mysteriously double when you sneeze near a red convertible, I've got a special guest in the passenger seat today, Jasmine Walker. She is an expert in the wild world of car insurance. So, whether you're a new driver, a seasoned road warrior, or you're just someone who's been burned by a not so good neighbor, you're going to want to buckle up for this ride. So, let's get right into it. Insurance is just a giant pain in the ass. And while I do not claim to be any sort of expert on car insurance, my clients still ask me for advice or for a referral to a good agent. Or the topic of insurance just naturally comes up because they're buying a car for their teenager, or they might be new to the US and they don't have a driving record. So insurance is going to be really expensive and they don't know where to go to get it. Or maybe they're buying a car for the first time. There's so many reasons that we have to think about insurance in the car buying process. So I am thrilled to introduce my guest today, who is an expert in insurance, Jasmine Walker, owner of Brightway Insurance in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, before we jump into everything, I do want to put a little disclaimer out there, folks, that insurance does vary by state. They've got all these different rules, and that's what makes it so complicated. So everything we talk about today, always verify information with your agent in your state, because there might be a little bit of differences. But before we get into all those nuts and bolts, Jasmine, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your business and how you got into insurance, and also what states you work in?
Well, I do business in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and that may change in the future as my business grows and expands. Thank you. Many blessings. But I've been in the business for years, and now I have worked my way into ownership with Brightway Insurance, which is a Fortune 500 company. So just doing what I do in servicing with insurance brokerage.
And it's great that you're a broker. And one of the reasons I asked you to be on this versus my own insurance agent is because you are a broker. So you can look at a lot of different actual insurance providers to find that right fit for someone. You're not locked into just State Farm or just Allstate like those agents are. So let's just throw it right out there. Why the heck has car insurance gotten so dang expensive lately? What is going on?
Well, it's keeping up with inflation.
I don't want to hear that.
I know. I don't either. I mean, I don't get any, discounts or any price reductions myself. But the truth of the fact is inflation is a big factor. The cost of parts and used cars is elevated. So it does, in fact, affect the insurance cost.
Sure, because it's more expensive to fix the car if it gets busted up.
That part. So all of those factors makes a difference when the insurance rates are concluded. But I do have carriers who the price has, for example, Progressive. Their rates have leveled off somewhat. So I do have carriers where the prices are now leveling off. So, but yes, just like everything else have inflated, insurance rates have inflated also.
And that makes sense because I've talked on this podcast a lot about the fact that new car prices, the average new car price is approaching 50 grand. And I have a feeling we will exceed that this year with all this tariff nonsense that's going on. But since we've seen a 30% increase in the price of new cars since the pandemic, it makes sense that insurance rates would go up accordingly because that's just the replacement cost of a car these days, as well as all of the more expensive parts. Now, do you think the insurance is going to be affected by the tariff situation if we do see significant increases in car prices, especially the makes and models that are made outside the United States? Do you think those cars will also become more expensive to insure?
Well, it's all factors. It all ties in together because when, not that I'm in claims, but just like inflation and everything has happened, just like we're just talking about the factors that go into the parts and used cars and the elevated rates of insurance, everything ties in together and it all affects the cost of insurance. So, I mean, I can't predict and nor do I make the rates, but when people, it's always why, but Jasmine, why? But why? 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 I'm like, come to my office and we'll have some cheese with that wine.
It
Listen,
is outside of our control. I mean, it really is driven by the market factors, but people don't think about how insurance is so closely tied to the cars themselves. They think, oh, is it the person or whatever? But it comes down to how much does it cost to fix or replace that car? And if those go up, guess what? Your rates go up. Now, one thing I want to get very specific on, for a while there, Hyundais and Kias were either more expensive to insure or some companies just dropped them entirely because there was this window of certain years and certain models where somebody thought it was a brilliant idea, not to put an immobilizer in there. And then some dingbat makes a TikTok video showing you how easy it is to steal one of these things. And it just blew up the insurance on these cars. Are we still seeing that? Or are the newer, I mean, I know the newer ones have the immobilizers. They fixed that problem. So, but are we still seeing those ripples on insurance for Hyundais and Kias?
well, just like the prices have leveled off and their rates. Some of my carriers have loosened their restrictions on that as well.
Well, that's good to hear. And I know the new ones have the
And
immobilizers.
that
So,
also, not to interrupt what you're saying, that also varies by the states also. I just want to add that as well.
so given that we can't control the price of insurance, what can people do to at least try to save as much money as they possibly can, but without sacrificing that important coverage? Because you do get what you pay for. And you really don't want to, buy the Walmart of insurance because it's not going to cover your butt when you need it.
I recommend having a strong relationship with a broker. There is a difference, and it's confusing for the general public. It's always best to have a good relationship with an experienced broker or agent, whatever you choose. It's at will. It's based on what you would like to do, who you feel comfortable with, who you trust with their credentials to make sure that they're going to act in your best interest to give you certain discounts. For example, there are a lot of my carriers that have the driving defensive discount and then also the good student discount as well. So you need to take advantage of those type of discounts, which will in turn save you money. And then also there are programs, most of my carriers have telematics discounts. So just make sure you spend your time, the valuable time that you have, making sure that the broker and the agent really do know you and your family and that they're working in your best interest to save you as much money as possible.
So
So
when
that
you
would be
say the driving program, are you referring to the one where the teenagers take a defensive driving course and then therefore can get a little bit better insurance rate because they can show they've had a little more training? Is that just for teenagers or is there something that adults can do too?
it's for adults as well.
Hmm.
AAA offer it. So if you look for those type of programs, and usually they give you a defensive driving course certificate once you complete those programs and you provide it to your agent or your broker, you will get a discount. So defensive driving course. Each state, each they usually name it, term it differently. But if you look into those type of discount programs, you will get a discount on your insurance. And also the telematics programs where they track your driving history and your driving to see what you're doing. You're driving just, some people, well, I don't want anyone tracking me, but the savings are significant to save you money on your insurance. So it's best to always work with a professional, someone who you trust, who can teach you and enlighten you about these programs to save you money. Because who really wants to spend extra money on insurance? No one.
No one. It's not a sexy thing to
No
spend
one.
money on.
It's not.
But
Okay.
The telematics things is really cool because as technology progresses, more and more things become available to help us save money. And so I got to test out one of the
Mhm.
first ones because I've been with State Farm my whole life. And
Mhm.
when their drives, theirs is called Drive Safe and Save. Everybody has their little name. And
Yep.
they gave me one like right when the program first came out so that I could
Mhm.
test it out.
Mhm.
And it was so funny. They give you this little device and it just sticks on your windshield and it works with the Bluetooth to the app in your phone and it tracks your driving and it's connected to the GPS so it knows what road you're on, etc. Jasmine, I'm a race car driver and I
Mhm.
drive a little Mini Cooper that has a racing suspension and you know I have, fun
Mhm.
driving to the grocery store. I don't do anything crazy, but it's just partly the way my car handles like
Mhm.
every little tiny thing. This thing was fussing at me. It's like, you turned that corner too fast. You hit the brakes too hard. It's like, it did not agree with my driving. So I figure
Mhm.
it's probably calibrated for maybe like the average SUV, not necessarily a little car that's set up to handle the way mine does, or
Mhm.
for potentially my driving style. But it was
Mhm.
really fun because I said, all right, let's see just how much I can piss this thing off. Because we were testing it. And
Were you
fortunately,
testing the little machine, Leah? Are you
well,
serious?
I'm like, okay, let's just see some things here. Because,
You got
my
too much
agent
time on your
assured
hands.
me my agent assured me that it wouldn't count against me. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, so it's like, all right, drive safe and save versus the car chick. Let's see what this happens. So
Oh.
I found some nice, open roads. I found a really nice empty traffic circle. Let me tell you, it did not like the way I took that traffic circle.
Mhm.
And I tried to use it when I was actually at the racetrack for a track day. But unfortunately, the track was not on the GPS map and there wasn't a signal there because it's out in the middle of nowhere. So unfortunately, it didn't work on the racetrack because that would have been absolutely hilarious.
I can.
But for the average person who doesn't drive like I do, that has a
Mhm.
normal car, it can be a great way to save some money. It just didn't
Absolutely.
it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't.
You
But it was
know,
very entertaining.
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I actually, when I'm quoting and working with my clients, I let them know the difference in a discount and what savings is. And I got to tell you, every time they choose that option
we
because the
came to a
savings is that.
we came to an agreement that some of the other like the because I have everything bundled together. She's like, well, the
Mhm.
bundling that you're doing is giving you the savings. So it's okay that you're not taking advantage of this because we are finding you savings in other areas. But she's
Exactly.
like, yeah, you're the way you drive, you're never going to save money with this.
But you're making my point that you're working with someone.
Right.
You know, the thing is, I go through life with my clients. So it's more of a life relationship. I know when the changes come. I know it's important to develop that relationship. So when they have life events, you transition. You know, when they add family members, when they get married, when they get divorced, when listen, you have to know because life changes. You go through life with your clients. So when that happens, you and your perspective field and industry, you have to know how to switch their coverages and their policies. And fortunately, I'm with a brokerage where I'm able to assist them with that, with my different carriers as their life changes also.
I frequently tell my clients, like really, like literally right now, as we are recording this, I have a
Mhm.
client who we're buying a car, a gently used Toyota 4Runner for his son who
Mhm.
is in college. He's trying to decide, do we title the new car in the kid's name, in which case does he has to have his own insurance policy? What's really the right thing to do to
Mhm.
make it not as expensive while this kid, finishes out another year of college before he goes out on his own. So, what advice do you have for parents who have teenagers? Maybe they're getting their license for the first time and they're 16 and everybody's freaking out. Or maybe if they're in college and they're getting ready to start their adult life, what's the best way to handle that so that It doesn't totally kill your wallet because teenagers are not cheap to put on your car insurance.
Oh
Versus
boy.
when is it good to let them have their own policy and start, building all these adulting things?
Oh boy. You're not gonna. This is the part where I need security. Okay.
Yep.
Security. Okay. Come on. Where I need security, and I mean it. Then nobody. This is the part where nobody likes me, and I disappear. Most of my carriers, it goes by household. And unfortunately, this is where, and believe me, I went through it too with my son. When they get to a certain age, we want to disown them. Let's be, and everyone wants. They're not in my household, and then a claim happens, and guess who's driving? The same individual who you said was not in your household. So if they're out of your household, and then there's proof of residence requirements that insurance carriers usually require. So everything has to add up. Does that make sense?
It does. So, as long as they're living under your roof or they're in college and your roof is still their permanent address and you're paying most of their bills,
Yep.
then it's cheaper to keep them on your insurance typically. But once they have their own address and their own job and they're filing their taxes at that address, then they have to have their own
When they
insurance.
truly have left the nest, okay?
Right.
When they truly have left the nest. Otherwise, a lot of my clients, what they do is, let's just face it, this is how much you pay. They divvy up the insurance cost.
Right. So that the kid has some skin in the game. Now, is it okay? Can you have the car titled in just the child's name and still have it insured through your household policy? Or does the official policy holder, the parent, have to also be on the title to the car? And I'm sure this does vary by state too.
Absolutely specific state, but the best advice for that, I would say, is usually the title, whoever it's titled in, will be required to have that insurance in their name.
And that makes sense. And
Mhm.
good because that's what I told my clients. So, yeah, I got that one right. Well,
I
let's
would,
switch gears a little bit here, pun intended. I have some clients that are business owners and they want to buy the car through their business for tax reasons. And I tell them, okay, that's great. You need to call your insurance agent because now you're talking about most likely a commercial policy, especially if the car is completely paid for by the business. Guess what? You don't own that car. Your business owns the car. Therefore, your business has to insure that car. What are some considerations for small business owners who want to buy the car through their business for tax reasons? What can they do about insurance?
when you get into business, you have to know the different advantages and disadvantages of personal and business and making sure that you're using it for business purposes.
Right. So is commercial car insurance tend to be more expensive than individual car insurance?
Absolutely. Is more, I would say it depends on the industry that you're in. Just like anything else, it's the risk exposure. So, say for example, if I'll take myself, I'm going to an office. That's low exposure, right? Versus a contractor, so to
Right.
speak. So it just depends on the risk exposure itself and what you're doing for the business. There are a lot of different variables: credit history, business credit, your credit as an individual, your driving history. There's a lot of different variables from your personal insurance versus commercial insurance. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And so, if you're someone who is thinking about getting a new car and thinking about titling it in your business because your accountant has said that's a good idea, before you make any of those final decisions, call your insurance agent and talk to them and see if your agent even does commercial insurance and if they're even good for it. For example, one of my clients, the one that I sent to you very recently, she had
Mhm.
never had a car in her business name before. It had always been personal.
Mhm.
And to make it even more complicated, her business is in South Carolina, but she lives in North Carolina. So not only did she have to have a commercial policy, but a commercial policy in a totally different state. And I know that she didn't give me specific numbers, but I know that you saved her a boatload of money versus what her own agent for her personal insurance quoted her on a commercial policy. So there's so much difference. So you got to have the right person to find you the right policy and the right fit for you. And it might not be the agent that you've been doing business with all this time.
And also, everyone has to realize that these are contracts, and you want to make sure that you're in full disclosure, because the fine print is you don't want to have misrepresentation. So if you're using it for business purposes, you want to be honest about that and disclose that.
Right, because if they find that, hey, you're using it in a way that you said you weren't going to use it for, and something happens, that gives them reason to say, hey, you broke the contract, so we don't have to honor our end of the contract.
It's all, they're not aware that it's just invisible money.
Right.
I had a claim, now pay me. They think it's that simple. Money is just falls out the sky.
Oh, don't we wish? Don't we wish?
Let me tell you, I'd be the first in line, okay?
It also could be a reason for, if you change how you use the vehicle in your business, or if you've started a business and you're using your personal car for that business, like a lot of people that have cleaning businesses, they are just going to the houses and they load all their cleaning equipment up in their existing car. That's how most of them operate, especially when they're first starting out. So now, don't think that your personal insurance policy will necessarily cover you now that you are using that car for business purposes. So and I even checked that for me, because I just use my car as a roving billboard. So those of you who have seen Maggie, to my '04 Mini Cooper S, her name is Maggie. She's wrapped in my business logos. She's basically a roving billboard, but that doesn't cross the line into truly commercial use. Now, it does let me deduct all my mileage from my taxes, but it doesn't provide any additional risk from an insurance perspective. But that's a different situation than someone who is going to client homes and cleaning houses and using their personal vehicle and loading it up with all their cleaning supplies. So you really have to have those conversations to know that you have the right coverage for what you're using that vehicle for, especially for a small business owners, where the lines can get a little bit blurred if we don't ask the right questions and we don't have the right people backing us up and telling us what all we're doing wrong. Because as small business owners, we do a lot of things wrong. So we learn better.
Absolutely. That's, education, not only just full disclosure. The thing is, I tell my clients, full disclosure. The more you tell me, the more you disclose to me. That's why it's very important. I'm going to go back to, who do you trust? Who can you tell? I've learned a lot about my clients over the years. That's why we have the fiduciary responsibility, to our clients, because you literally learn everything about what they have, their assets, their this, their that, because we have to protect it.
You might not even know exactly what you need protected. So, for example, that small business owner that is using their personal vehicle for their business, they've got their cleaning supplies in it, or, my carpet cleaning guy. And now, okay, well, what about the stuff that's in the car? How is that insured? Because if your car's broken into and they steal your tools, or they steal, your vacuum cleaner, or, whatever's in your car for business purposes, if that gets stolen,
yes,
what is that covered under? So you have to think of these things. And, if you're just insuring your car through, a place that you call an 800 number and get, some random agent in some random country that's looking on a computer screen, that might be the right fit for some people. But if your life is a little bit more complicated than that, it's important to have that relationship.
Absolutely. Because these things happen when you least expect it. So what you want to do is be protected when it does happen, because unfortunately, it's going to happen.
Eventually it's going to happen.
We're all going to have a situation where we're uncomfortable, where our life changes, where we need to make a claim, unfortunately, because that's what is there for, an unexpected event. So, then we have situations where we want to get toys, whether it be a jet ski, or, I have clients who get motorcycles, or, collectibles. I love insuring toys. So you definitely want to, like you said, have a agent broker relationship where they know how to properly even direct you to someone who can properly appraise those toys and get it properly insured.
That's a great point because
Mhm.
there are specialty insurance companies like
Yeah.
for classic cars. So if you
Yeah.
find that barn find and you get it restored or you buy
Mhm.
something at the Barrett Jackson auction, that is not, there's not a Kelly Blue Book value for that car. It can't be insured in the same way as, your 2023 Toyota because it's
Because
a totally
it's a different
different animal.
process.
Totally
My
different.
I have different carriers for those type of cars. So it's very important to disclose what you have with your broker
Yeah.
so that they can assist you and have these things on file. There's a different procedure depending on the line of insurance, what you want help with. And see, when you get into those type of collectible and toys, it becomes emotional.
Oh, of course.
It becomes my clients are emotional, okay? That's their child. Okay, that is their child. I wouldn't dare, Leanne. Like I said, I need security. I wouldn't dare. My company got the pictures, the appraisal. I wouldn't. I need security because what we're not gonna do is not replace those 1963 Mercedes. They love these toys. Okay, it becomes emotional, and I understand. I understand.
Yeah, and I
People
had a
love their
situation
collectibles.
happen
Mhm,
myself with Maggie many, many years ago. We got
mhm,
rear-ended while sitting at a traffic light because the lady behind us was looking at her phone and not at the road around us, and it was raining and a whole mess. And
mhm.
she had absolute crap insurance. They were the biggest pain in the butt to deal with. And,
Oh,
fortunately, I am a little more educated than the average bear on it, but,
that's
they
good.
were trying to total out my car. And appraiser they sent out did not get half the information on my car correct. They didn't even get the mileage correct. They didn't get the trim level correct. So I had to go back and fix that with them. And then it's not just repairing the car. I have a wrap on my car. I have $10,000 worth of aftermarket parts. I have a custom lighting system under the car. My car is not
Mhm.
stock. And they're like,
Special
"Oh, well,
equipment.
we don't cover that." I'm like, "Oh, but you do. Let me tell you about the law in South Carolina. If it
Mhm.
is on the car, it is covered and you have to cover it because I'm in South Carolina." And I'm like, if I need my agent or my lawyer to call you and have
Mhm.
that conversation, then that's what we're going to do. But that's not true in some other states. But I've
Mhm.
also made sure that my agent knows that my car has a wrap and this is how much it costs. I have every receipt from when we put all these other parts on the car that had to be included.
Very much important. Did
So,
you give your agent all those pictures and things of that nature and receipts?
yep.
Was see?
Even just having, if you have, decals on your car to advertise your business like I do, I mean, that
Mhm.
wrap is not cheap. And
Mhm.
you need to make sure that that is part of what is covered under your
Mhm.
policy. Because again, it's something that does have to be replaced if something happens to your vehicle.
And let me say this: you disclosed it because a
Right.
lot of time, a lot of clients think that I'm a psychic, and I'm not.
Well, and they don't necessarily know. It's not that they're trying
Yep.
to hide it.
Yep.
It's just that they don't realize that that matters, that it is a
Mhm.
variable in the conversation. So, when in doubt, ask questions.
Question. Let your insurance company, your agent know. It's always best to disclose everything because that way it will make the claims process that much smoother. Thank you so much for having me today, Leanne.
Thank you. And how can people who are in North, South Carolina, or Georgia who are interested in talking to you about their own policies, how can they reach you?
Well, they can always contact me old school way by phone at 980-255-5088, or they can go on my website, which is brightwaywalker.com, or they can contact me on Instagram, and that Instagram plug is the_Brightway Insurance. Thank you.
Fabulous. Well, I will put the link to the website in the description below so that people will have access to that. And again, thank you so much, Jasmine. And thank you guys out there for listening to us talk about insurance today. If anybody can make insurance sexy, it's my friend Jasmine. So, folks, if you haven't signed up for the Straight Shift newsletter yet and access to the exclusive tariff tracker, a Google document that I am keeping live up to date for my subscribers to track every single make and model on the market and what its tariff risk is. And that'll also give you an indication if you own one of those cars already. Maybe your insurance rates might go up depending on how this wacky tariff situation shakes out. So you can do that on my website, thecarchick.com. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do and share it with your community. Thanks again, everyone. Drive safely. We're out of here.